So getting into Volume 6 of Moonlit Fantasy. I do feel like still a lot of the core elements of the story as far as the anime and the light novel are still there. And that is something that I think may upset some light novel fans, but I'm just being honest here. As I read through and go through the volumes, there is still a lot of core aspects. Like the anime so far is sticking true to the, as I would refer to, the dot points. But there is still, again, and this is something that's definitely a trend throughout the volumes, a lot of little details kind of being pruned over, which is something that I feel like does happen in a lot of light novel adaptations to an anime, where you get a lot of the finer details, which is why I always say to people, read the source material if you're a big fan of it, and always read from the beginning. Don't read from where like the anime like drops off, because there's always little things, and light novels have a tendency to refer back to those things, while the anime will just kind of come up with a way of brushing over it, especially stuff that's not kind of relevant. Which is like, an example would be at the end of this volume, there's these sort of bonus little, not really bonus, but little stories about the different demi races coming in for sort of like job meetings, like for interviews, where they're like, oh yeah, this is who I am, this is what we do, blah blah blah, you know, can we relocate into your secret cool misty place, that kind of thing. And there is the pixies, which I'm going to call them pixies because someone in the comments go, well, actually, they're this name. Just like what the pixies do. So I'm waiting for that comment. But there's those pixies, and it's the same kind of play out as what's in the anime. But there's this little extra part where they're like, oh yeah, we're going to go to war with him, kind of thing. And that little part there is kind of missing. Which, in itself, is it important to the anime? Maybe not necessarily, but is it fun? Yeah, it adds a little bit of fun comedic moments. So there is that. One of the other things that I thought was really kind of interesting in this volume that was skipped over is the love stuff. And what I mean by that is, of course, in the anime, it goes over all the love confessions going on with our main male protagonist, where he's getting all these girls wanting to be his second, third wife, concubine, kind of like side hustle. And I believe I mentioned in the last volume that most of them don't want to be intimate with him, because it's one of the things that he does is he goes, oh, okay, you can be my first wife. And they go, nah, not interested. Because they don't want to actually be with him romantically. They just want the sort of the name and the fame and the power that comes from it. So they want to be sort of like a side girl, and they don't actually ever be intimate with him. But that's one thing that was kind of pruned over, is that little detail. But the core part was there. But there's the other little detail in Volume 6 where the two girls that he saves, they actually go around basically sort of scaring away the competition and all the other girls. And they kind of like go, oh, you know, well, if you want to be with him, you have to get along with us. And then these girls go, yeah, no. I'm not going to go with him, because they're scared of these girls because of their reputation of what they used to be like now that they're kind of chilled out a bit. I'm going to say a very, very, very controversial opinion here. Get ready for it. I do believe in the long term that this series is going to be a harem-based story. And to be honest, it kind of is already, to some degree. We could argue whether it fully is and fully isn't. Again, a harem is where 3 or more... Is it 2 or more or 3 or more? I'm having a brain fart. It's 3 or more individuals in love with the main protagonist. Now, they don't have to have those feelings reciprocated. I always have to explain it because there's always someone stupid in the comments that doesn't know what the Japanese definition of a harem is. And again, I say Japanese definition. Don't use other countries as the definition to try and change it. But my thing is that I do believe in the long term that there is going to be more than just the dragon chick and the spider chick, Toma and Mia, that are going to be love interests. And I'm speculating, as you can get from the hint, that the two sisters may have feelings for him. Whether he chooses to be with them or not, as girls, is a completely different story. But I do feel like there is some hint of feelings there that they have. It could also be argued that they just have a deep sense of respect for him as a person that saved them. But I do also wonder if they do have like a little bit of a crush on him right now, and maybe later on it could go down that sort of harem route where there is like, say, like 4, 5, 6 girls that are into him and he ends up marrying them all. That's a possibility that I foresee. I kind of figured it would probably turn into a harem later on, because that's kind of what a lot of these types of series turn into. I know that turns a lot of people off from these kinds of stories, but the thing is, to counter that, is that isn't the core component of the story. The harem aspect, I feel like, if it is going to be there, it is going to be very... I mean, you've already got Mia and Toma already in love with him. So it's like already two are there. So you're mostly there at the harem route. And that's not the core component of the story, is it? So being a harem, as long as it's not impeding on the overarching story, I don't have an issue with. There are a couple of isekai stories where the harem becomes more of a hindrance on the story rather than a sort of side quest as per se. So I don't have an issue with that. Then you've got other little things like some of the politics later on. There's a little bit more details on some of the sort of the scale of it. And there's also this little bit, and I'm mostly going over the cut content because if you've watched the anime, most of the anime stuff is in here. So that's what I mean. The core aspects are here. I'm mostly going over the cut content. But there is a scene where he buys a map for Toma. And then he kind of notes on it, and I don't know if this is in the anime, because I don't remember it ever being in the anime, but he notes that the map is very similar to Japan. And that makes me wonder, because he also notes that, like, oh, there's probably, like, other places that are, like, you know, out there. And I feel like there's this speculation that the world is Earth, but just kind of different. And so it makes me wonder if it's, like, again, you could go with an alternative Earth, you could go with time travel, path, like anything like that. But the fact is that this area is like Japan. I'm like, that's kind of cool. It's like a subtle little detail that I'm like, that's cool. It reminds me of Log Horizon, but Log Horizon is very different in how it goes about it, because that's like a game built around the world that it is in. So that's that kind of thing. But I just kind of like the concept. It's like, oh, this place reminds me of my home because it's kind of similar in the map design. Like, I think that's kind of cool. It does get done a bit, but it's not that overdone, and it's not like it's a core component of the story. But I thought it was a nice little interesting detail on it. And it also gives him a bit of advantage because he'll know the lay of the land if he realizes that it is kind of like one-to-one of Japan. But as far as like terrain goes, also there's those differences. I don't think everything is one-to-one. I feel like it's like maybe one of those where it's like some aspects are and some aspects aren't. Maybe I'm over-reading into it, but that's just my humble opinion. There's also a lot of talk about like when they're looking for a new location to kind of set up the gate kind of thing. There's that discussion already where they're like, oh, well, this is like in demon territory. We don't think the humans are going to be able to take this back anytime soon. We should just attack. Like, Tomo's just like, let's just like roll over it. Like, let's just take it by force. And he's just kind of like, yeah, no, that might hurt diplomatic talks later on kind of thing. And I think that's where, like, in the anime, it doesn't really go over this because already Toma's pushing the idea of, well, here's an area that we can take over. This will give us the necessary ability to kind of like stabilize the mist world. We should do this. Like, she's ready to do it. And he's like, no, we can't do that due to other reasons. Let's just wait this out a little bit. And he kind of like thinks over it. That already sets up the idea of that there is a location, that there is an idea of pushing for to take it, but he's hesitant on it due to reasons that make sense. While in the anime, it kind of glosses over it a little bit. It kind of, you know why they're taking it, you know the objective, like, there's stuff there, but it kind of feels not as refined, not as explained, there's not as detailed. It feels a little bit messy in the anime, while in here, it's very clear. That's the location, that's what we need to take over. We could do it right now. I'm Toma, let's do it. And he's like, nah, we can't because of these reasons. That way you know what's going to happen and it all makes sense. It kind of leads up to it. I think it's well done from a light novel's perspective, and it does again go into that kind of thing of like the anime kind of brushes over it just a little bit messy. The rest of the series is mostly the same. I mean, there's little subtle details, little extra monologues, those kinds of things, especially with, like, discussions about the world, the past, the transportation. Like, there's little things that you're always going to miss, little backstories for certain characters. Like I said, the romance component. And then there's also a little bit of extra detail between the students and the training and some of the back and forth that goes on there, some of the bonding moments when they're at the sort of the pub or inn drinking, little things like that. But I think overall it's still a solid volume, and the anime is still doing somewhat solid. Whether there is more deviation, because as I said in the past volumes, once you start a deviation, that starts to cascade. But so far it's kind of kept to a minimal sort of deviation. But I do feel, again, as time goes on, you will see that as things progress. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments section down below. What do you think of Volume 6 of Moonlit Fantasy? I'm very excited to see Volume 7 because we're kind of building up now to that school festival and the boys' love and the failing and him kind of conflicting about going down that route of taking that stuff and the corruption and all that and the events that lead up to that. So, love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Who is your favorite girl, Toma or Mia? If you like this video, hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.